Are you someone who's passionate about typography? Maybe you would like to test your knowledge of how your typography is in graphic design and see where your skills or your weaknesses currently are. If that's the case, then today's before and after style video will appeal to you a whole lot. So let's get right into it, guys. There is 8 different editions in today's video, and try and see how many of those 8 you can get right. For the first one, we have a fairly simple and clean layout design, but when considering the typography, there is one key main issue. Now, it might be subtle to some people, but that is what these videos are all about. It's teaching the fact that sometimes a subtle problem can be a big thing. Let's take a closer look to see what's actually going on here, and just think to yourself, what would you change in terms of the typography on this design? So if you guess that the leading on the body text was too tightly packed together, then you are correct. Leading, aka the spacing between each line, is very important to get right, and that's so the viewer can read the text clearly, but also so that the design as a whole doesn't look cramped or messy. Having leading that is too wide apart can also be an issue. Here's another somewhat simple design, but just remember we are thinking about the typography. What makes you feel uncomfortable when looking at the typography on this design, and what would you change? Now again, this one might be something not so obvious to many people, but when we see the following change soon, it's probably going to be obvious that the change was needed. So let's go ahead and reveal that change in the typography. Now on the first design, the typography was centered, but considering the image content, having the text in the center just didn't work. It doesn't make sense. Now why is that, do you think? Well, because the design needs to have balance to work visually, and so having the text in the upper left helps to achieve that. This also could be seen as the design principle of proximity. Now here's a poster design advertising a specific night at a club, and there is one change that needs to be applied to multiple areas of the design in terms of the typography. So to clarify, we're looking for one issue that has been made in different areas of the design. But can you work out what that problem is? So let's reveal that change and see what has been done to the new design. It is the fact that the first design failed to make use of contrast in the typography. Now contrast emphasizes certain things, and also it just makes the design look neater and more visually appealing. Yes, on the second design the text underneath Sept in the upper left corner is somewhat blurry, but that's just a video render from my screen recording software. If this design was printed out, then it would look just fine. Design number 4 has a pretty major typography offense, but can you see what it is? Now this one probably jumps out to most people immediately, and it is there glaring you right in the face right now when you're looking at it. So here's the change, and the issue in the first design was the line length. The length of a body text line needs to be well thought out, and it shouldn't be too short or too long in comparison to the design. This will change on different designs and it is relative, but also on the first design the text was almost touching the design elements on the right, which just doesn't look good. Now the 5th example today is something a little bit different, and I do have 3 of these questions coming up. But on this letter I, what are the yellow additions called at the top and the bottom of a character? Now this one should be obvious, and of course they are called serifs. I'm sure most of you know this, but what about the next one? Can you guess what the next technical term is? So if the previous example was serif, what would you call the orangey yellow addition on the letter R here? Well, I'm going to put you out of your misery, and this one is called a bool terminal. And of course, they are only seen on specific style of fonts. Now I could go through many of these technical terms, but that's not for today's video. However, we do have one more technical question. What are these 2 lines called at the top and the bottom of this text? They are a specific typography technical term, and see if you can get both of them right here. And after this question, we have one final before and after example for us to look at. So the bottom line here is called the baseline, and then the top line is called the cap line or cap height. So kudos to you if you've got these technical terms right. So the final question for today's video is, what would you change about the typography on this design? There is something that again for some people is probably sticking out like a sore thumb, but what would you change about this design? Well, of course, the text here has been aligned centrally when in fact it probably should be aligned to the left. Sometimes aligning text centrally is okay, but most of the time aligning to the left will be the better choice. So yeah, there is today's video of before and after content and typography, and do let me know if you want to see more videos just like today's. And until next time guys, design your future today. Peace.